Back in 2017, when Breath of the Wild was the new and trendy game, down with the kids, theories were popping out left, right and centre. The now well-known topics were only just being discovered then. It was a beautiful time. And one topic that I sort of shrugged off was the mystery behind the home Link can purchase in Hiteno Village. Many players believe this was once Link's actual home pre-Calamity Ganon, and others don't. At the time, the question never really interested me. I simply saw this as just a house for the player to buy, and that it originally being Link's home was overthinking. Wow, imagine a theorist overthinking. But that all changes today. In my most recent playthrough of the game, when I got round to the house, the question reignited itself within my mind, and it really interested me. I did a little research and found that there isn't much on this house aside from tutorials and glitches, so I thought I'd give my 2 cents regarding a question that has been around from the very beginning. Is the home in Hiteno Village actually Link's former home? Be sure to go grab yourself a snack or drink and show me those divine meals on social media, and let's get into the mystery of Link's home in Hiteno Village. Firstly, we should look at the known information and history of the home, as this will help us to begin connecting points in favour of either this once being Link's home, or never being his home. When we first find the home upon discovering Hiteno Village, we can see that it is isolated on its own piece of land connected to Hiteno Village by a bridge. On one side of the bridge is the more modern and new Bolson construction style of homes, and on the other, an old and run-down house that is currently being demolished by construction workers. If we talk to the workers Carson, Hudson and Bolson, we can learn that the house has been demolished as it was left abandoned, reportedly after the owner headed to Hyrule Castle, but never returned. Carson's exact words being, the old owner apparently went off to the castle to report for service, never came back, never wrote, so away it goes. Bolson also notes some interesting information, telling Link that times are rough, not a lot of buyers, possibly implying that this house has been here for a long time, hence why nobody wants to purchase it. It is also mentioned that the decision to demolish the home was that of the Hiteno residents, Bolson Construction saying that the villagers thought it was best to be demolished, and that they even voted and argued on it. Could the fact that it was argued about possibly mean there is some sort of importance to it? We'll look into that shortly. Other pieces of key information would be Bolson saying that it has been empty for years, and that it has been hard to keep track of stuff ever since the Great Calamity, referring to the previous owner. This means that the house has definitely been around for at least 100 years, likely more as it was around pre-Calamity. It was abandoned around the time of the Calamity, as the owner never returned, and it's mentioned that since the Calamity it's been hard to track anything. The home could have some sort of importance, as it's evident many Hiteno residents didn't want it demolished. That surely couldn't be the reason for wanting more homes for people to stay in, as Bolson Construction already has set up a few to move into, meaning this house could hold some form of importance to the locals. However, most of them are young adults to middle-aged people. Only a select few such as Yuma are elders who would be able to remember people who lived here 100 years ago. Granted, information could have been passed down to ensure the home is protected in respect to Link if he was the owner. Knowing that local info and rumours, we can begin to look at the timeline of events 100 years ago in terms of the house, Link and the Calamity, and start connecting the dots. 100 years ago, before the attack of Calamity Ganon, Link was appointed Princess Zelda's personal knight at a very young age due to his outstanding unique ability. Something important to know about this role is that it requires Link to be with Princess Zelda at all times, day and night, 24/7, 365 days a year, meaning he was constantly on the go and living in temporary accommodation or even out in the wild if necessary. We know Link had been in the role for a good while, as throughout various sources such as Zelda's diary and the memories we learn, that the pair developed a relationship over time. At first not being very close, and if anything the princess was not happy with Link's presence at times, but over time the pair grew closer and began to understand each other. This is important to know, as it tells us that if Link did leave the home long ago, he might have not had the chance to ever go back to Hiteno to give a notice of leave. However, there may be a small issue there, which I'll get into shortly. Going back to that point about the Hiteno residents real quick, it could have just been that they don't want the original village to be torn down, signifying that it was one of the villages that survived the Great Calamity. There is a chance it's that. Or someone else of importance lived there, perhaps a previous village mayor or someone who ran the place. It could have been anyone, to be honest. So, knowing that Link would have been working 24/7 around the time of the Great Calamity, as in the years prior and the year of the Calamity, we can assume, knowing that Link was a teenager back then, that he probably would have been in the job being Princess Zelda's personal knight for around 5 to 10 years maybe? We know it could be this long, as we are told Link was appointed her knight after a young Link deflected a guardian laser with a pot lid, something that instantly stood out to the king. When this event occurred, Link was reportedly assigned the role then and there, meaning there is a chance he just never returned home following this. But as I briefly hinted at earlier, there could be an issue with that. Link's family. We never see Link's family in-game, we only briefly hear about them in the Japanese version of Creating a Champion, Masterworks. We find some artwork for who we can assume is Link's family, him, his father, and sister. We do know from in-game that his family did exist, and this isn't just some unused concept art. We learn that Link's father was a knight, and looking at this artwork, the man here does meet that description. He is a large, muscle man looking guy. There is also his younger sister, with emphasis on her age. She is young, and likely wouldn't be living alone. If Link was appointed as Princess Zelda's personal knight, presumably his father and sister would continue to live at home. I mean, the house could easily home 3 people, probably more. We can even see families within Hiteno Village living in near identical built homes inhabiting 4+ people. This tells us that whoever lived here lived alone at the time, as they left and never returned. There was no one else there to care for it. This could have been Link, as admittedly he may have lived alone, but being a teenager, how likely is it that he'd own this secluded, private, family-sized home? Not very, in my opinion. You need to remember, before being appointed Princess Zelda's personal knight, he was still a knight in training, meaning he would have been out and about a lot. We don't know if knights in training get paid anything, but I'd presume not, because they're just training. They're not actually in a job, they're training. Surely whatever income Link was making wouldn't be enough to live in this house alone. Who knows? There is another interesting piece of information to note, and it is found within the Creating a Champion book. There is a small note regarding Link's family, and it says, there are no records of Link's origin, but he is not nobility. It is thought that his hometown may have been Hiteno Village. Being a country knight who rose through the ranks to become a champion and Princess Zelda's personal bodyguard seems to have raised a few eyebrows, and caused a few tongues to cluck. That tells us a few things. Firstly, the origin is not certain or known by anyone, and that Hiteno Village is just where Link was believed to have been from, but, as the text also states, he was a country knight. That doesn't mean Hiteno Village. In fact, that could be various countrysides of Hyrule, as we know there was previously a lot more villages, smaller settlements and houses across the land that were devastated and destroyed during the Great Calamity. He could have easily lived in one of those settlements, and that could even explain why his family are no longer around. I mean, his sister was younger than him, and that could also explain why there is no remains of his family seen in game. Perhaps they were just brutally wiped out by the Great Calamity. If they lived in Hiteno Village, surely they would have been fine. The exact wording, may have been Hiteno Village, could just be an assumption, as in the present day, it's one of the few existing countryside settlements, but back in the day, pre-Calamity, there were a lot more settlements. So, returning to the original question, was this originally Link's home pre-Calamity? Looking at the facts, it is 100% known that Link left home at a young age after progressing through the ranks and becoming Zelda's personal knight. I mean young age as in not an adult, as we know he was 17 at the time of the Great Calamity, as his biological age in the present is 117, 100 years after the Great Calamity. We also know he had a family at the time. Looking at the family artwork again, we can tell that Link looks slightly younger than we see him in Breath of the Wild, but still old enough to be a knight. If I had to guess, I'd say he's around 11, 12, or maybe 13 years old in this image. Keep in mind, he also has a younger sister and working father. Going off the families we see in Breath of the Wild, you rarely see teens or young adults living on their own. Everyone seems to be very family-based, which is a common thing in the Zelda series. If Link left his home to go and become a 24/7, 365 days a year personal knight, the home would still have his sister and father living there, and as I previously mentioned, if they did live in a smaller countryside settlement, there is a good chance it was wiped out during the Great Calamity, wiping out any records of his family, and that's why we don't see any reminiscence of his family in-game. I do not believe that this was once Link's home before the Great Calamity. The facts are just against it. But, of course, this is just what I think. You might totally disagree with me, or agree with me. Be sure to leave a comment below with your thoughts and let's get a discussion going. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I really appreciate your time and hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you're new if you did enjoy, and maybe also consider sharing the video to some of your Zelda loving friends. It would be very much appreciated. What do you think about this? Was the house originally Link's home pre-Calamity Ganon, or is it simply just a vacant house? Leave a comment below with your thoughts and let's get a discussion going. Huge thanks to all of my wonderful Patreon supporters. Your support helps me to make these videos as often as possible. Special shout out to our newest patron, Charles Zazaz. I'm sorry if I butchered that, I tried my best. I really appreciate the support, as it helps me to make these videos as often as possible. If you'd like to support the channel alongside them and get some goodies such as your name featured at the end of all of my videos, a shout out upon joining, and more, then check out my page through the card on the screen or link below. Again, thanks for watching, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.